Thomas Jefferson, a name that echoes through the annals of American history, the author of the Declaration of Independence, the third President of the United States, one of the Founding Fathers. He penned the immortal words, "All men are created equal," and yet there is a painful paradox. Throughout his life, Jefferson owned hundreds of enslaved people. How could a champion of liberty live independence on slavery? It is one of the deepest tragedies in American history. Jefferson's story is a complex tapestry of enlightenment and contradiction. Born in 1743 in Virginia, he grew up in a world where slavery was deeply entrenched. As a young man, he inherited both land and slaves from his father. But Jefferson was also a product of the Enlightenment, a movement that championed reason, individual rights, and human progress. This dichotomy would shape his entire life and legacy. On one hand, Jefferson was a freethinker, a man ahead of his time. He advocated for religious freedom, public education, and scientific advancement. His library, one of the largest in America, contained books on philosophy, science, and politics from around the world. But on the other hand, Jefferson was a slave owner. At Monticello, his sprawling plantation, over 600 enslaved individuals lived and worked during his lifetime. The man who wrote about the inalienable rights of all men relied on the forced labor of those he considered property. Perhaps nowhere is this contradiction more starkly illustrated than in Jefferson's relationship with Sally Hemings. Hemings was an enslaved woman at Monticello, and DNA evidence has confirmed that Jefferson fathered at least one, and likely all 6, of her children. Their relationship lasted for decades, yet Hemings remained enslaved, living in a small room near Jefferson's bedroom. The story of Jefferson and Hemings is not just a personal scandal. It's a microcosm of the larger issues of race, power, and freedom that have shaped American history. Hemings, herself the half-sister of Jefferson's late wife, was only a quarter African by ancestry. Yet under Virginia law, she was considered property, not a person. Jefferson's writings reveal a man torn by his own contradictions. In his only published book, Notes on the State of Virginia, he expressed views on race that we would today consider deeply racist. He suggested that black people were intellectually inferior to whites, even as he acknowledged the evils of slavery. Yet, in the same work, Jefferson also wrote passionately against slavery, calling it a moral depravity and a hideous blot on the nation. He feared that the institution of slavery would lead to a violent reckoning, writing, "Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever." So how do we reconcile these contradictions? How do we understand a man who could write so eloquently about freedom while denying it to others? The answer lies in understanding Jefferson not as a saint or a villain, but as a human being brilliant, flawed, and shaped by his time and place in history. Jefferson was born into a world where slavery was not just accepted, but seen as essential to the economic and social order. He benefited from this system his entire life. His wealth, his status, even his ability to pursue his intellectual interests, all were built on the backs of enslaved labor. At the same time, Jefferson was exposed to new ideas about human rights and individual liberty. He struggled with these concepts, trying to reconcile them with the world he knew. In his draft of the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson included a passage condemning slavery, which was later removed by Congress. Throughout his life, Jefferson proposed various plans for gradual emancipation and colonization, sending freed slaves to Africa or the Caribbean. But he never took decisive action to free his own slaves, except for a handful of individuals, mostly members of the Hemings family. Jefferson's inaction on slavery wasn't just personal, it had far-reaching consequences for the nation. As president, he oversaw the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the United States. This expansion allowed slavery to spread into new territories, setting the stage for conflicts that would eventually lead to the Civil War. Yet even as he failed to resolve the issue of slavery, Jefferson's words and ideas about freedom and equality would inspire generations of Americans. The Declaration of Independence, with its bold assertion of human rights, would be invoked by abolitionists, suffragists, civil rights activists, and freedom movements around the world. This is the paradox of Jefferson's legacy. His words proclaimed liberty for all, while his actions perpetuated a system of bondage. He expanded democracy for white men while deepening the oppression of black Americans. He dreamed of a nation built on equality, yet he could not or would not fully extend that dream to all. In many ways, Jefferson's contradictions mirror those of the nation he helped create. America has long proclaimed itself a land of freedom and opportunity, even as it has struggled with the realities of racism, inequality, and injustice. The ideals Jefferson articulated have often been in tension with the harsh realities of American life. But perhaps it is in grappling with these contradictions that we can find a path forward. By confronting the full complexity of our history, its triumphs, and its tragedies, we can better understand the challenges we face today. We can see how far we've come, and how far we still have to go. Jefferson's story teaches us that progress is not linear. It comes in fits and starts, with setbacks and contradictions along the way. It requires us to constantly re-examine our beliefs, to challenge our assumptions, and to strive to live up to our highest ideals. In the end, Thomas Jefferson reminds us that even the greatest of men are bound by their own limits and by the age in which they lived. He left behind the light of liberty, but also the shadow of contradiction. Jefferson's story teaches us this. History is not only glory, but also shadows we must face if we are to truly understand humanity as long journey toward justice and human rights. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe for more exciting content. See you in the next video.